What's up guys, I hope you're doing well. My name is Murali. I just recently graduated from college and I'm going to be attending medical school this fall. And I thought I'd make a video explaining some tips and advice for applying to medical school. And in this video I'm going to be talking about the primary application. So the primary application is one of the first things that you are actually sending to medical schools. And so it's a really important part of the application. There's a few important things that make up your primary application. This includes your transcript, your MCAT scores, your extracurriculars and information about your most meaningful activities, your personal statement, and letters of recommendation. Also, if you're applying to a dual degree program like an MD-PhD program, you might have some additional essays for that in your primary application. Mainly, why do you want to do this dual degree program, and also explain some research or something else that you've done. So most of this video is going to be on writing your essays and some tips for that. But one tip that I do have for your letters of recommendation is to try and get them done and get them submitted as early as you can. Make sure to ask your professors or whoever is writing your letters of recommendation to submit them as early as possible and ask them well in advance. I'd say if you're applying in May, start asking them in December. However, once you have submitted your primary application with some letters of recommendation and it's been processed, you can still submit other letters of recommendation. For me personally, I did this. I submitted three letters of recommendation when I submitted my primary application, but I was doing an internship during that summer when I was actually applying. So then at the end of that summer, I asked my manager to also send a letter of recommendation for me, and that got put into my application later on, and they submitted it and they read it. So you don't have to stress too much about letters of recommendation, but you should start pretty early. For the other parts of this primary application, it's pretty hard to change it at this point if you are doing your primary application. You can't really change your transcript or your MCAT score that much, but you can focus on the things that you can work on right now, which are your personal statement and your writing about your extracurricular activity. So here's some tips for your primary application. Tip number 1, start writing as early as possible. At my school, there was an office of academic advising that would make you write a sort of mock application for all pre-med students. They had us start writing this application process in January when our actual application was only going to be open in May. So that was well in advance. So I'd say you don't need to fully stress like 6 months in advance, but I think it's worthwhile to start brainstorming what you're going to write about in your personal statement or in your extracurricular activity essays. Start thinking about stories that you might want to incorporate in your writing well in advance, and don't delay thinking about that so that you're unprepared when it comes time to actually write things down. The more you're thinking about why do you want to do medicine and what are the lessons that you've learned from your experiences throughout college, the better off you'll be for when you actually want to write down everything that you need to for the application. Tip number 2 for writing your primary application, you want to make everything as concise as possible. You have a limited character count when you're submitting your writings for all this. I think for your personal statement, you might have 5,000 characters, and for your other extracurricular writings, you might have 500 characters, if that. So you don't have that much space to work with when you're writing this stuff. So you want to make sure it's as concise and crisp as possible and that you're not wasting any space talking about something that's not important. In your personal statement, what you want to talk about is your journey here so far and why that journey has led you to want to become a doctor. And in your extracurricular activities, you can back up your personal statement by talking about experiences that you've had or lessons you've learned from the experiences and challenges that you've faced that have helped you get to where you are now. But when you're writing, make sure to actually talk about that only and only about that story. Don't distract and talk about other random things. Tip number 3 is to explain how you've grown and talk about the lessons that you've learned up to now. The primary and also the secondary application is primarily just for the admissions office to get to know who you are and what you bring to the table. Why should they admit you? So you need to talk about how your experiences have shaped your mindset and your goals, and why you want to be a physician. So when you're writing in your personal statement or in any extracurricular activities, talk about the challenges that you faced and how you overcame them and the lessons you learned. Don't just talk about, oh, I did this. Talk about what that experience actually meant to you. The 4th tip for your primary application is to write multiple drafts. While you do want to submit as early as possible, make sure to send your essays off to your friends or your family or anybody else who you trust to edit your work, and make sure that you get other feedback. because if you just submit your first try, it might not be perfect. But through multiple revisions and feedback from a lot of different sources, I think you'll get a better idea of what your writing actually conveys to the reader, and you'll be better off for it when you write later on. Because while you might think that, oh, this writing is so good, I'm writing so many good things about why I want to be a doctor and my experiences, but if the reader doesn't necessarily understand what you're trying to convey, everything that you wrote is moot. It doesn't really do anything. So in order to know whether or not your writing is actually working, send your application off to someone else, a friend that you can trust, and get their feedback, and then incorporate that into your essays. Don't just do it by yourself. All right. Tip number 5 is to proofread everything before you submit it. When you're in the application window and you've copied and pasted your essay into that window, don't just hit submit. Read through it one last time to make sure that there aren't any mistakes or errors. If you're applying to University of Washington in Seattle, but in your essay you've talked about University of Washington in St. Louis, that's not going to bode very well in the admissions office. So make sure to check through everything one last time before you submit. Once you're done writing all of your essays and you've done all the work, make sure to submit your primary application as quickly as you can, because it's only after you get your primary application that you get sent your secondary application. In terms of a timeline, I think the applications all open up on May 1st for AMCAS, so I suggest that you be done by the middle to end of May, early June at the latest. But once you're done, you don't have that much room to breathe. You need to get started on the next step as quickly as you can, which is writing your secondary essays. And while you might say, oh, I haven't gotten my secondary applications back, how am I supposed to work on them? Don't worry, you don't have to actually get your secondary applications back for you to actually start working on your essays. Most schools do send a secondary application to applicants. They usually do just a preliminary screening of your GPA or MCAT, and then they send your secondary application out to you. So chances are you will be getting a secondary application. So why not get started early as possible? What I suggest is going online and finding a questions hub from a bunch of different schools. I'll have one link down below in the description. But look through those schools and look at the questions that they've historically done, and then start pre-writing some essays. Chances are the questions that they ask this year will be pretty similar to the questions they asked in previous years. So if you start pre-writing, I think it'll only help you out. Alright? That's all the content that I have for today about the primary application. My next video will be about the secondary application, so don't worry if you want that advice soon. It'll be out soon. I hope you enjoyed this content, and I wish you the best of luck with your application. If you liked this video and thought it was useful, make sure to leave a like down below. And if you want to see more content about the medical school application process, or about my experience in medical school coming up this fall, feel free to subscribe down below. Alright, peace, have a good day, and see you in the next video.